everybody, and welcome in to Blue Jays Today, folks. For today, we are going to talk about all of the latest Toronto Blue Jays updates. Who's hot, who's not at spring training, who's hurt, because that is a new thing that's going on right now, everybody. There's a few people who are in the injured or injured list right now, day-to-day, some stuff going on there. Just a bunch of Toronto Blue Jays news that we've got to dive into as this team ramps up for the season. Also, massive shout-out. I saw you turning around the cup right there. Shout out to Tim Hortons and Roll Up to Win for sponsoring this video. More on that later. I'm your host, Nicholas Playlock.
I'm your host, Adam Paddle. Yeah, feels good to be here on a Monday afternoon, drinking some Tim's coffee, chilling with all y'all here and talking some Blue Jays baseball because we have some unfortunate updates, and we're going to get into that later in this podcast and in this live stream. But first, why don't we start with something positive? And that is what we saw today. We saw some good signs out of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in that spring training game. He had a home run. I made a little short on that today. But basically, he went 2 for 3 with a home run. You got to love to see that. Placata, the sound is back. What I really loved, though, the results obviously great, but I really loved is even that one at-bat where he didn't have a base hit, he drove it to the deepest part of the ballpark as well in deep center field, and that's kind of been the conversation is, can he get his bat head out in front and do damage? We saw a little bit of that today.
Yeah, 100%, dude. And for everybody who is, like, itching at the computer right now to type in all capitals, it's spring training. It doesn't matter. We understand.
We know.
At the end of the day, like, the statistics in spring training, they really do not mean a whole lot. You know, like, the fact that he's got 1.2 plus OPS, I guess that doesn't mean anything at all, you know, just, you know, whatever. But seriously, I mean, it is good to watch this guy swing the bat with that much conviction, because I feel like that is something that we're seeing, right? And that's one of those things that even though the 400 batting average or whatever he has right now isn't going to carry over into the regular season, the way that he is swinging his bat, that is. And right now, I think that when you're watching this guy at the plate so far, it just looks like a better version of himself. It looks like a player that I want to have on my ball team. It looks like how he started last year. And if you guys remember, last season when he started, that whole month of April, I think he finished that month of April with a 900 plus OPS. Like, I think he was really, really solid.
Yeah, so, I thought he was back.
Me too.
I thought he was.
Me too. And
so was Matt Chapman. So was Boba stayed there.
Boba stayed there, but the rest of them not so much. But either way, I do think that right now Guerrero is starting at the right place. And it's super nice to see that when you're looking at the Toronto Blue Jays right now, even though spring training stats don't matter, the two guys at the top right now as far as at-bats go and just like in terms of overall production is Bo Bichette and is Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Yeah, I mean, they should get the most playing time for sure. Are you worried at all, though? Because I saw some people on Phillies being like, I'm just playing devil's advocate right here. Like, well, it's Nelson. Of course he's going to give up a home run. Oh, it's this minor league guy. Of course he's going to hit a single to left field and, like, give up runs. Is that worrisome? Or, like, what is it that we're looking for here that is a good sign?
Yeah, of course he's gonna. And he did, right? Like, I kind of hate those arguments where people are like, well, it was against this guy, and, like, that's what he was expected to do, so that means that it's not impressive.
Right.
But, like, he still did it, you know?
Look at last year where the Toronto Blue Jays, how many times do you see them come up against fifth rotation guys getting called up to the big leagues that day, and them not being able to do any damage on them? It felt like it was our Achilles heel. Like, we couldn't beat bad pitchers. Yeah. For whatever reason. We just need to beat pitchers. No matter who they are, we got to beat them. And we saw a little bit of that, obviously, today.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where it's really easy when you're sitting from your couch and, like, you're not an MLB player. And again, that's what we are. We're not MLB players.
What are you talking about?
We do sit on our couch. We do make judgments and everything like that. But I think it's so easy for people to go, this is a bad team. You're supposed to beat them, and so you will. But at the end of the day, like, everything in the MLB, everything in any professional sports is very, very difficult. Beating up on the bad team sometimes is really tough, and it is a challenge. So Guerrero, yes, he should have annihilated this guy, and guess what? He annihilated this guy.
He did.
It's a good sign so far, man.
Hey, I'm happy. Obviously, like you kind of said, do I expect this 400 batting average to continue? Obviously, no because it's spring training. It's spring training. But we look at the Blue Jays overall, and I'm starting to see a little bit of positive signs from more than just Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as well.
Totally.
I mean, we have to continue to acknowledge Bo Bichette. I mean, this guy literally didn't miss a single beat. Like, the entire offseason, this guy looked like he was in the cages, continuing to hit balls the other way. This guy continues to hit singles up the middle, and yeah, you're not seeing the big power from Bo Bichette, but what you're seeing is the ability to drive the ball back where it came from, and do it in a clutch situation. Today, he had to do it with the bases loaded and 2 outs. And it was him coming up to the dish, and he did it with 2 strikes, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was absolutely fantastic. And he did a great job because he had a good hitter's count early. He took his big swings, right, on no strikes, 1 strike. That he allowed himself to. He took his big swings. But then on 2 strikes, he shortened up, said, okay, now I'm with the team right now. I just got to put this ball in play. And he did. And he capitalized.
What do you think about because I'm looking at just flashback over to that lineup right there and what everyone's doing. I mean, Bo Bichette's going crazy. Guerrero's going crazy right now. Justin Turner's going crazy right now. Yes, again, small sample sizes in spring training. George Springer hasn't played a whole lot of ball yet. He hasn't really done a whole lot either.
Not a single hit, yeah.
You know, I wonder if there's an argument for at some point in this year, like just saying, if George Springer is not necessarily hitting the ceiling or getting the bounce back that we want, I wonder if instead of like trying to fit someone else in that leadoff spot, what if you just take those 3 guys and just move them all up a spot, you know?
Or like down a spot?
Or down a spot, excuse me. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, yeah. I think someone, for that to happen, first of all, we need to have someone warrant a top of the order kind of job. You know, I was kind of actually talking in my video room over the weekend where Alan Roden could be a guy I could see easily. If he comes up, if he's playing as well as he's been playing last year, he brings it over to this year, maybe even does even better. And it's kind of like David Schneider situation where you're like, okay, well, we're stupid not to call up this guy because of how good he's been in the minor leagues. If you bring him up, yeah, you're not going to put him at the top of the lineup right away. He's got to prove himself a little bit. But if he gets comfortable and he continues to show up in the big league level, like if he shows up, I think he profiles as a great leadoff guy. Lefty, okay? He could steal bags. His on base is out of this world. Last year was 431 on base percentage. From his batting average to his on base was over 100 points. So this guy profiles perfect as top line guy. That's one candidate in my mind. I don't know who else on this Blue Jays roster currently would be, you know, competing for that job. You know, obviously you got to have them break out, but that's what it have to be.
Well, right now it's George Springer's to lose, and Tony Friend comes in here and saying 35 years old, hard to ask too much from Springer, and I do hear you right there. But keep in mind, folks, I mean, this 35-year-old is, the leadoff hitter right now walking into the start of the season. So, I mean, put age aside, like, we need to ask something from our guy to set the table. And then, 2, we're talking about, is he the highest paid or one of the highest paid Toronto Blue Jays players on the team? Top 3 for sure. So, I mean, the guy certainly makes his bucks. I'm not anticipating that he's going to necessarily go back to Houston Astros, George Springer. But we need something a little bit better than last year if we are going to be driving in runs this season. And if Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Justin Turner are starting this hot to enter the season, like if they're looking this good in April, you want someone in front of them because, I don't want to be starting the inning with 1 out every single time Bo Bichette comes up to the dish. You know?
Right. Alternatively, what if you move George Springer back down in the lineup? Because at one point last year, Whit Merrifield took over the 1 spot, and you had George Springer go down and be in the 4 or 5 spot. For
so it's kind of funny, actually. When I first brought that up, that's what I intended.
Oh, okay.
And you took it a different way. I didn't correct you because you were going on about a thing that I wanted to talk about later anyways. But that is what I was suggesting. Okay, well, it's like you just move those guys, like Bo Bichette, Guerrero, and Turner, you kind of stick them together.
Right.
But if, Bo Bichette could still potentially be a leadoff hitter in his own right, if you wanted.
Yeah, because I still want Bo. I like him at a 2 spot because he has an opportunity to maybe drive in an extra guy, in that 2 spot. And I don't necessarily want to keep George Springer up there if he is struggling. You know what I mean? I'd rather him be down in the order. If he's got pop, and that's what we got to see from George Springer. If we're expecting him to get his pop back, he can profile as a great 5 guy.
You totally can. And I think that as he gets older as well, you do start to see that as dudes get older, they still have the power stroke, but it can be tough sometimes to, one, make consistent contact with things, and then also running the bases just gets increasingly difficult as time goes on, right? So, I mean, George Springer is still a big guy, and, he can still absolutely swing that thing. Maybe as he ages, he will find a spot in the 4 or 5 or 6 spot in the lineup. Obviously this season, there's a lot to be decided. He's got a lot of work to do, and I still want him to be the leadoff guy. But I like that the Toronto Blue Jays potentially have options if that's not necessarily what's going to happen.
Yeah, I absolutely hear you. I think that's pretty much the big takeaways from this game today. The Blue Jays did win. So, I mean, if you guys are counting wins.
3-7.
There we go.
3-7, baby. Yeah, actually, obvious again. This means nothing at all. But I was looking today, and the Toronto Blue Jays were the last in their grapefruit league. So I was like, you know what? I'd love to not necessarily be last. Like, we don't need to be winning this thing or anything, but like, maybe let's just like get out from the bottom.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, overall, like if we were to actually get serious about this Blue Jays grapefruit league, man, this like offense has looked horrible. It's looked horrible. This needs to be fixed. It's so awful. The pitching is getting blown up. But yeah, obviously these are guys that like we're not going to be rostering.
Well, let's speak a little bit about the pitching staff, folks, because a few kind of scary updates going all around right now. It looks like the Toronto Blue Jays are getting hit with a tiny bit of an injury bug. Shout out to Ben Nicholson-Smith right here, who tweets, Kevin Gausman, and then in brackets, shoulder, has no structural damage, which is great, per John Schneider, but has been dealing with soreness, which has kept him out of spring games so far. Blue Jays hope he can resume ramp up before long. I love that there's no structural damage or anything like that, and it seems just by the way that this tweet is worded that we're not too worried, and I don't think the Blue Jays are letting on that they're too worried. But I am concerned that the resuming of the ramp up hasn't necessarily started yet, because again, you got to factor in it's March 4th right now. First Toronto Blue Jays game is March 28th, I believe. Yeah. That's roughly, like just a little bit less than 4 weeks away. I mean, 3.5 weeks or so. I would like this guy to get at least 1 or 2 spring training starts in under his belt, a few innings in before that happens, because obviously he's going to be the opening day guy. What do you put into something like this, right?
I mean, you're kind of nailing it. It is unfortunate that this guy is supposed to be the opening day starter, and the biggest thing that you see in spring training that it kind of hurts guys in the regular season is not being able to be ready to go by opening day. Totally different example, but Alejandro Kirk on the position player side of things, like he wasn't ramped up in terms of his timing. He suffered. He didn't get the playing time, but obviously Kevin Gausman, very different scenario. Yeah. Very similar scenario, however, Alec Manoa. He was hurt, but that wasn't known in camp, and he just kind of pushed through it. Didn't really tell anybody. He was the opening day starter for the Blue Jays in 2023. So I'm worried, and we all know how that went. Yeah. I'm just worried that we don't rush him into it. I hope we kind of learned our lesson. And look, we have so much depth as an organization now. We're not relying on these guys that we have to pitch there. Because our problem last year is we didn't have anybody else to cover for Alec Manoa if he was hurt. Now we actually have the dudes in our system, getting it in free agency, getting it homegrown. So let's not worry too much about rushing him in. If he has to miss opening day because he's just not ready, I'd rather him miss opening day. I'll be much thankful down the line when I see Kevin Gausman pitching quality, big-time games in some big spots midsummer.
I say this time and time again, folks. Like these little tiny injuries, the little day-to-days, in other sports, I don't know if they're necessarily as bad as they are in baseball, because in baseball, when you are playing every day, or if you're a pitcher, you're playing, 1, maybe 2 times a week if it's a big week for you. You're just on your feet so frequently that these things can get aggravated really quickly, and then it can snowball, and then it's June, and your shoulder's really hurting at this point, and it's like, oh shit, now I gotta go in the IL, and that's just something that we don't want to have happen, especially with a guy as valuable as Kevin Gausman. So I agree with the approach right now. Like, let's just lock him down. This guy knows his body better than anybody, and I do think that that's something that I have faith in. Alec Manoa, he wanted so desperately to be the guy and to make the opening day start and to really put his name on the map and be like, hey, I am an absolute ace in this league. So he was going to play through it regardless. I think that Kevin Gausman understands right now that he's going to put the team before himself, and he understands that it's like, hey, dude, I am not 100% right now, and therefore I am going to rest.
It's funny, Kevin Gausman was actually the one that leaked it to the media that Alec was hurt and coming into spring training. So if anybody knows anything about getting hurt in spring training and having it affect your season, it's Kevin Gausman, it's Alec Manoa, right? And speaking of which, did want to shout out Alec Manoa as well. This is kind
of going through something.
Couple days old now, but yeah, Alec Manoa, he actually was supposed to start this Sunday, and his start got bumped due to right shoulder soreness as well. So I'm hoping that he's learned his lesson from the last time, and he's taking it day by day. Yeah. This kind of brings me to my next talking point. I want to hear your thoughts, as well as you guys in the chat as well. With that being said, that could be 2 guys in the top 5 of the rotation that aren't potentially, if they're not ramped up, the things could change, but if they're not ramped up, that's 2 guys missing from your rotation. Who do the Blue Jays look at now, potentially to start some early games in April?
That's worst case scenario, by the way, folks. I'm really hoping that isn't what happens here. I do want both of them to be ready and set. once April rolls around. But a big dude who everyone is looking at right now, us included, has got to be Bowden Francis. I mean, like, this guy is actually showing up, and last season, the way that he finished off last season was pretty phenomenal. I mean, we brought this up before, but Bowden Francis, I think it was a 1.73 ERA that he had over 36 innings, and this is something that kind of blew me away. He was averaging around 94 miles per hour on the fastball last year, and this year in spring training, he's hitting 96. He almost hit 97 the other day. So that's where he's walking in to spring training.
And he's also he's developed a new splitter. I mean, you saw it in the broadcast today. If you were watching the spring training game, Bowden Francis hanging out with Kevin Gausman. You know, I mean, Kevin Gausman has influence, of course, for right reasons. This guy's the ace of the club. And Bowden Francis picks up on the splitter as well this offseason. A lot of guys are trying it out, including Nate Pearson.
Yeah.
We'll
to
see
varying degrees of success so far.
Exactly. But let's see what happens. If he's adding another tool to the mix, that's obviously going to be helpful to get hitters off of that high velo fastball. And look, he's earned it. I mean, he started a couple games here and there, or at least gave longevity out of the bullpen for the Blue Jays last year. And I'm excited to see. Look, he was never a highly touted prospect coming up. He's kind of just come up in the system, guy that everybody likes. So I'm down to see it. Look, this is an opportunity, and if Bowden Francis wants a place in this rotation, this is the time to start, because if Alec Manoa doesn't ramp up, let's say Alec Manoa isn't ready for opening day, if he's got to ramp up, he's got to go to AAA, this is your opportunity, my man, and you got to capitalize.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like this guy is like the first dude up. If there is going to be somebody missing. And again, he's not going to be starting opening day or anything like that, but like he is going to be in the mix for potentially that 4 or 5 spot, depending how many people are out. I don't think that this dude is necessarily going to be there on the roster for opening day or anything like that, if, you know, or unless like the entire freaking pitching staff is hurt by this point. But I also saw a few people kind of talking about Chad Dallas a little bit, and just like how he is just kind of etching himself like into that short list of guys who could potentially come up at some point in the regular season. I mean, Chad Dallas, he's had 2 starts now. The first one was phenomenal. The second one, he did give up 2 runs, and he's going to be coming in again later this week, pitching 3 innings. So the Toronto Blue Jays are definitely giving him a lot of work right now, and his stuff has looked good. He's not necessarily going to blow anything past you, because I think it's 93, 94 miles per hour on the fastball, but he does have a lot of versatile pitches, and I think that he's now just this spring training, it's kind of like his intro and being like, hey guys, like, I'm here if you need me later down the line.
Yeah, he's definitely around that next call-up, and obviously a lot of things have to go wrong for the Blue Jays in terms of performances and injuries in that Major League roster for him to itch his way up. But I'd definitely throw his name in the mix, especially when you have Yariel Rodriguez right now, who's dealing with some injuries.
He's dealing with something too.
Right? Ricky Tiedemann, he's been dealing with some injuries as well, so we don't really, you know, has he played yet this spring training?
Tiedemann?
Tiedemann.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
No.
I thought
he was throwing. So
he was throwing a side session.
Yeah, he was throwing a side session. I forget who he struck out. He struck somebody out.
Right.
The other day, actually.
Right.
Keegan Masson was tweeting about it.
Right. So I mean, he's not up to game speed just quite yet. Hasn't played in a spring training game, but again, like, it's a good problem to have with so much depth. Like, a lot of these guys. I mean, I saw a tweet of a Boston Red Sox fan talking up Bowden Francis. This guy's technically our number 6 right now on our depth charts, and that would be a number 2 on Boston Red Sox.
Right.
You know, it is such a good problem to have. Obviously, I want all those guys to be healthy, the Toronto Blue Jays starters, but this has been a luxury that we haven't had before, so I feel more comfortable going in this year having to face injuries in that rotation.
Yeah, no, I hear you, dude. There's a lot of depth here. Obviously, some of these guys need to get healthy, but there is still time. Here's a fun little thought experiment. If, for instance, Kevin Gausman isn't necessarily ready to go for opening day, who do you go with? Do you go Chris Bass, or you go with Jose Berrios as your guy for opening day? I think there's arguments for both of them right here. There's good arguments for both.
Well, I mean, Jose Berrios has been the opening day starter before. You know, there's a little bit of veteran leadership there. He's been on the team longer. And does John Schneider want to make up for Jose Berrios from the polling? That came out today. We have it up on as a talking point.
Yeah.
I would go Jose Berrios if it came to it.
I think I would probably go Jose Berrios too, but I wouldn't be upset if Chris Bassett started either.
Of course, I think they're going to try and line up. I mean, if it lines up where Chris Bassett has to go for opening day, they're not going to be upset.
No,
you know what I mean?
No, of course not.
So they're going to try and line it up. We'll see what happens, but that's where my money is.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go Berrios as well, but again, wouldn't be upset if the Hound was on the mound. Before we get to our next point, guys, let's just give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video.
Time for a quick shout out to Betway. Betway is the best place to make all of your sports bets on all of your favorite teams. Betway is also in collaboration with iGaming Ontario. Must be 19 years older to participate. And guys, please bet responsibly. Now, back to the content.
Shout out to Betway, everybody, for being absolutely phenomenal. Speaking of Jose Berrios, let's talk a little bit about what John Schneider had and to come out and say, and just discussing the wild card loss that the Blue Jays made. Obviously, a bit of an infamous decision was the pulling of Jose Berrios. 3 innings pitched, 47 pitches, kind of just annihilating the Minnesota Twins when he was taken out. And at the time, John Schneider, when he was asked about it and everything, and it was very fresh, it felt like he was still standing by that decision. And I remember him specifically coming out and saying that, well, this is something that we had decided for a long time. Like, we had talked about, we'd made this decision days, even weeks prior to this game happening. We knew when he was going to come out. He's going to go one time through the order, and then, boom, you're going to get pulled. And now, very recently, was kind of the first time that he really went back on that. And I think he heard the critics, excuse me. He heard the haters, and he had all winter to really break it down. And I kind of like what it was that he said,
Yeah, I mean, he says, that will suck my whole life. He regrets it. I think you made a quote of it today, if you remember the quote.
He said, he told Jose Berrios, he said, it was something
along the lines of, like,
dude, I wish I would have kept you in longer.
Right.
And I think that I like this because at first, Schneider comes out, and obviously he's defending everybody, defending the front office, defending the decisions, and then he really did take the time, and it feels like
time for a quick shout out to Betway. Betway is the best place to make all of your sports bets on all of your favorite teams. Betway, shout out one more time to Betway.
Shout out to Betway, guys. But I like that he went back and he really reflected on it, because at the end of the day, and this is something that I was saying at the time, was John Schneider is still a fresh manager, and just like some of these players make errors in the field, he's going to make errors as the manager, and I hope that he can learn from them.
Yeah, and to defend John Schneider a little bit, look, I was all against him. I was like, why are you making this decision? What's going on? I do want to hammer home, it was a organization decision. That's what kind of the word is. It was an organization decision. However, a veteran manager, and I'm glad you brought up that he's new at managing, because a veteran manager might have stepped in and said, no, we're switching to plan B. We're dropping what we thought was going to happen because this guy's having his best stuff today, even against the lefties, because that was the big argument, that we needed Yusei Kikuchi to come in for the lefties. So because he's newer, he played it safe, right? And so I give him some respect in that regard, where he's just doing what he thought his job was to do that day, which is to trust the analytics, trust the organization in this decision. But yeah, I think he learned now that we got to be able to adjust on the fly and use what we're seeing. That whole decision with Jose Berrios, I was thinking about it more the other day, because Jose Berrios, obviously he didn't like the decision either. He couldn't have liked the decision. He wanted to stay in the game. But I think Jose Berrios realized it too. It's an organization decision, and there had to be multiple people saying, well, we got to have Jose Berrios out when the lefties come up. Multiple people, right? Because if you look at his numbers, I actually pulled up his lefty numbers, his splits last season, and he got hit by the lefties. He had a 774 OPS against left-handed batters, 262. So if you look at those numbers, if you're an analytics department, you're going, okay, well, we can't have him face all these good lefties in the Twins lineup. So Jose Berrios goes in the offseason, realizes that was the reason I couldn't get out lefties. So what does he do this season? Rather than asking John Schneider to keep him in the games, he decides to improve a little bit more, and he decides to add a cutter to his pitch mix. He's come out, he's added a cutter. That's going to be effective against the lefties, going to front hip that cutting fastball. Just another weapon to try to get out left-handed batters. So that's him saying, oh, woe is me, you could have kept me in the game, but instead of that, I'm going to improve even better. I'm going to actually try to make it even more of a reason why you should keep me in this game. I'm going to get everybody out. I'm going to be that dominant. I'm going to go to the next tier.
Well, I am happy that he is making that adjustment, and I understand. Like, again, I get why that decision was made, but I hope that the Toronto Blue Jays organization has also learned that, look, this isn't the way that we're gonna win baseball games here, folks. Like, we do need to use our eyeball to an extent, and you make a choice, you make the decision, and then you go back on it when Jose Berrios is absolutely just outclassing this entire lineup. So I think it's got to be a learning curve from everyone: John Schneider, Jose Berrios, the entire team, right? And I hope that after that decision was made, all of them kind of got together and had a conversation and said, and Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro and all the other guys who were part of that decision told John Schneider and said, hey, buddy, like, if you would have went away from the decision that we decided upon, we would have been okay with it. We would have supported you, because I think that as a new manager, you also got to factor in, I mean, he's thinking in the back of his head, hey, like, everybody's on the same page with this choice right now. I'm just going to go with what we decided.
That's exactly
But, like, he's got to know that they support you changing it.
Hey, we did all our research, but now it's time to adjust on the fly. Because, yeah, I mean, imagine if he changed the decision, like, I'm not going with Yusei Kikuchi, and then he got blown up the next inning by all the lefties. Then the analytics department and the front office, or whoever is in that decision-making process, goes, dude, what the hell?
Yeah, we told you this was going to happen.
Right? So I agree with you where you need to be able to adjust on the fly, just like players in the game. You go in the game plan, yet today, instead of seeing a heavy diet of fastballs, as if I'm Vladimir Guerrero Jr., now I'm starting to see a heavy diet of sliders. They've made the adjustment now. Now that I've proved I've hit the fastball, now I got to make an adjustment. And just because my hitting coach said, sit fastball, well, maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm going to sit slider. Maybe I'm going to wait for him to hang it. Maybe I'm going to poke it the other way. So you got to be able to decide and make an adjustment mid-game.
Yeah. And, I mean, going back to that wild card game again, like, I do want to put this whole conversation to bed and just start focusing on this next season.
I agree.
But keep in mind, folks, I mean, hindsight is 2020, and we have no idea what would have happened, right? Jose Berrios very likely could have gotten blown up the next inning and given up 5 runs, and we lose 5-0 instead of 2-0.
Correct.
We still didn't score any goddamn runs anyway, so it really doesn't matter.
There you go. Why don't we transition just a little bit to put that conversation to bed? Let's talk about the guys now. We talked about it a little bit in the beginning of the show about the players of today's game who were standing out. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was one of them. But there's some other players that probably aren't getting enough spotlight. And I think we got to bring back an old classic, everybody. This is the Blue Jays Today Show after all. And if you're an OG here, you know that every single week we like to crown the Jay of the Week to mention a guy who put up this week. Even though it's spring training and wins don't matter, I think we should honor some good performances.
All right, hit the graphic.
Let's do it, guys. It's time for the Jay of the Week.
Now, the Jay of the Week, everybody, is specially brought to you by Tim Hortons Roll Up to Win. It's going on from March 4th to 31st. There's a lot of different prizes that you can win, folks. I wish that we could give out a prize for the Jay of the Week, but the Jay of the Week itself is just that awesome. So that's the prize. Let's give a big shout out here to a name that we may not hear for the rest of the season, but he is popping off in his own right in spring training. Go with Paulo Espino, dude.
Paulo Espino, everybody.
Espino, currently 5 innings pitched, folks. He's given up no earned runs at this point. He's got 9 strikeouts in that time frame. Espino, he's showing up, and that's kind of sparked some conversations with some people saying, "Hey, like, could we get something out of him this year? Is there something that this dude could offer?"
I mean, I would throw him into the mix of like Chad Dallas in a sense, where like he's there in the bottom of that like top 10 starting pitching depth for the Blue Jays. You know, if it really required him, you might be able to see him. But where he's up here, because wow, look at the strikeouts, bro.
Yeah.
The 9 strikeouts is just phenomenal. Honorable mention of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. too, who put up like a 1.269 OPS. That obviously got inflated after today's great game. But I think, we're probably going to see some of those from Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Well,
Espino, underrated signing.
Yeah, well, a little bit so far, right? And I think that, again, like, spring training stats don't mean anything, right? They really don't. But they do in the sense that now Espino's name is kind of on the map. And I think that Toronto Blue Jays coaches and Toronto Blue Jays management is going to look at this and go, okay, you know what? This guy had a great spring. If somebody does get injured, if we need something down the line, if we make a trade and we got to fill in a spot, Well, now this guy's name just entered into that conversation, and let's say if he put up a terrible spring, that wouldn't happen. So in that regard, the stats do matter, right? Because now he's on the map. So shout out to Espino. Maybe there's something for you this year.
Yeah, Espino, you're the big winner today, buddy. Welcome to the show. I don't know how many times he's going to win J of the Week, but if he wins another one, then watch out, everybody.
Yeah, maybe we can get into the regular season. That'd be sweet.
Yeah.
Speaking of some other big-time spring training performers that we didn't mention off the top of the show, Ernie Clement looking really good, dude. And I do want to give this guy a bit of a shout-out. I wasn't aware, or like I'd forgotten that he finished off last year with the Blue Jays in a very small sample size, mind you, only 50 at-bats. But like really solid numbers, folks, was Ernie Clement. And so far this spring, he's doing it again. He's got a lot of versatility. And you were mentioning to me prior to the show even starting, he doesn't have any options. So whatever you choose to do with Clement, that's it. Like, you've made your decision effectively.
Yeah. You gotta, if you call him up, you won't count as an option. But if you start him with the team and you send him down, as soon as you send him down, then you gotta go. He's gotta pass through waivers. He's gotta get DFA'd.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's not a great thing to be losing a guy, especially like you said. I mean, he actually did pretty well last year for the Blue Jays. Trying to find, there he is, Ernie Clement, 0 options. So with that being said, we're looking at the Blue Jays bench right now. Another kind of tough decision because, I mean, Vogelbach's name's been thrown into the mix, and so Fangraphs thinks that Vogelbach actually has a chance to make the team. They actually have him projected to come off the bench and be the first baseman over Spencer Horwitz right now. And it does make sense. You bring him in, you know, he has no options. So if you are going to bring him up, you kind of have to use him, or you just kick him off the 40-man. He's in the minor leaguers. What are your thoughts? Like, where are you thinking right now for this Blue Jay bench competition? Obviously, Ernie Clement, do you think he's got a spot in here, considering looking at this bench right here?
Well, I wonder even if, like, part of me wonders if maybe Ernie Clement is part of the trade package that people have been talking about for a while. You know, everybody's saying that, well, somebody's got to get shipped off from this middle infield. We gotta ship someone out and change them around. Ernie Clement has no options left. We've seen the Toronto Blue Jays before. Doesn't really love guys with no options. Like, is there any way that we could trade him for something?
See, that's tough, bro, because, like, he has no options. So who's going to trade for a dude with no options that's, like, you know, basically a bench guy at best?
I don't know, man. Like, who's going to trade for Santiago Espinal? Why did we pay IKF $7.5 million? Look, anything's possible.
Santiago Espinal's got, like, what, 3 years left, and he's got 2 options. So he's actually a little bit more flexible than an Ernie Clement, so provides just a little bit more value than an Ernie Clement. But with that being said, we keep bringing up his name. Is a reality where we're ever going to trade Santiago Espinal to make room for an Ernie Clement?
See, that's the thing. See, now I'm thinking about, I don't think that is possible. Yeah, because if you trade Santiago Espinal and you bring Ernie Clement up, even though Ernie Clement's great right now, well, now you can't send him down anymore. So you just lost that. Right, so it's like now you're pigeonholing yourself by trading. So you trade away Santiago Espinal. Now you bring Ernie Clement up. And then Ernie Clement sucks. Well, now we got to send him down. He's gone. And we don't have Santiago Espinal.
I personally think the way the Blue Jays are going to operate this year, look, they have so much defense versatility. Like, finding guys on the field, you're never going to have a problem. Be like, who's going to play third today? Who's going to play left field? Who's going to play center? Everyone can play everything virtually on this roster. So for me, it's the best 4 bats you got. So obviously you got Danny Jansen there. You have Kirk that's going to be in the lineup here projected by Fangraphs. David Schneider, you got to have him. He's a great bat. If Ernie Clement's bat is showing up, and it has shown up so far this spring, do you send Santiago Espinal to the minors for the first time in years? And maybe he turns into that guy. Maybe you're willing to start burning some of those options and start Ernie Clement on this team.
Maybe. I mean, it's not completely impossible, right? Like, I guess it kind of depends if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, what do you want out of that spot? Do you want a super high ceiling and a really low floor for a guy that then if he hits his low floor, you're going to DFA him and you're never going to use him again? Or do you want some guy that's kind of a proven commodity that you know that you're going to get solid defense out of? This is the Santiago Espinal I'm talking about right now, that if he does suck, you could send him down and you don't necessarily lose him, and then you bring up Ernie Clement. Part of me thinks that maybe that would be the way that you go about it, where you start with Santiago Espinal, and then if Espinal really is not doing well, then you send him down, then you bring Ernie Clement up, and then if that's not working, well, you could still do the opposite, and you lose Ernie Clement, but you still have Santiago Espinal to fall back on.
Personally, I love Ernie Clement. He's been great for the time he's been with the Toronto Blue Jays in his role in the small sample size. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense. What if someone gets injured, right? What if Santiago gets injured? What if Isaiah kind of Falefa gets injured? You don't have to use any options on Santiago Espinal. You can just put him on the IL. And then you bring up Ernie Clement because you have to. So for me, it makes sense to keep these guys on the bench right now. And then, speaking of Spencer Horwitz, not to like totally derail the conversation because Daniel Vogelbach is here on the screen. He's got tons of options. So why, let's just try out Daniel. He's free, essentially. He's a minor league contract. And then see what happens. However, the one problem is you got to make room for Daniel on the 40-man. That's the one problem. Yeah. That means you got to cut somebody.
Right. So. I think with Vogelbach, it is one of those situations where, okay, we're paying him the money. We're going to try it. And if he's just bad in the first, month, goodbye. You're done and we don't care. And now it's Spencer Horwitz. And that is that, And again, Danny Burgers is hilarious, and he took Garrett Cole deep earlier at the beginning of the weekend. Do I necessarily expect Daniel Vogelbach to be on this team at the end of the season? Probably not. I don't think so.
You don't see him in the postseason? You don't see him in the postseason? Taking Cole deep in the ALDS?
That would be one hell of a story, dude. That would be one hell of a story.
I just want Vogelbach on the team to face Cole. That's it, bro. Well, I want that drama. I want that spice.
Yeah, I think whenever you're facing Garrett Cole, it's like you specifically need to have Daniel. Even if you were to cut him, let's say you DFA him and he passes through waivers and all that, you sign him again just for that game against the Yankees. Yeah, just to see the drama unfold, man. Because that was kind of ridiculous that Cole afterwards. Granted. There's two ways to look at this. Obviously, if you guys aren't familiar with it, Daniel Vogelbach takes Garrett Cole deep in a spring training game that means nothing at all. He's got a bit of a flip. He's got a bit of a flip going on with the bat. Yeah. He's got a slow trot going on, everything like that. And then after the fact, Garrett Cole talks to the media and says, "I'm not going to forget that. I'm not going to forget that." And kind of gets a little bit of upset about it. So. I think there's two ways to look at it here. Blue Jays fans took it in the way of Garrett Cole is a crybaby and he's whining, which is true.
It's spring training, yeah.
But then on the other flip side, it's spring training. Why are you bat flipping and doing all this slow trot?
For me, it's like Daniel Vogelbach literally got signed to a minor league deal. I'm seeing it from his point of view. He's not attached to this Blue Jays-Yankees rivalry. Maybe he is. I don't know Daniel Vogelbach personally. Right. Maybe he really detests the Yankees and Garrett Cole. But for me, he was in New York, so maybe there was a bit of Yankee rivalry there. But for me, it was I'm trying to make a team, and I just homered off Garrett Cole. I'm feeling myself. In the first inning, I'm feeling it. It was a bit of adrenaline.
I do hear what you're saying, but I want to play devil's advocate here in the sense where I get where Yankees fans are also coming from in the sense where this is it is a spring training game and you did bat flip and you did have their slow trot, so I get how someone could take offense to that. Yeah. However, Cole is also being he's whining. He's being a little bit of a crybaby. I don't think you necessarily needed to assert your dominance over Daniel Vogelbach.
Here's a funny thing for those Yankee fans out there. I saw a couple of Yankee fans saying, "Man, the Blue Jays, they just want a rivalry so bad they'll do any." So that's why we're bat flipping and spring training and stuff. You think that we're actually looking for the smoke? Or do you think that there's a genuine rivalry? Because I actually do think there's a genuine rivalry between Yankees and Blue Jays.
Of course there's a genuine rivalry. We've heard from Alec Manoa before, or not Alec Manoa, Garrett Cole. He's had words to say about the Toronto Blue Jays. Guerrero's come out and said stuff about the Yankees, saying all he wants to do is just beat these guys. I thought this was...
kill them.
Yeah, kill them, yeah. I thought this was kind of ironic, though. Yankee fans, and maybe this is a generalization, maybe it's just baseball, sports fans in general, but I do feel like Yankees fans, if you go on to Yankees Twitter and they're tweeting at the Toronto Blue Jays fans and everything like that, it feels like there is a significant amount of body shaming and all of that against the Toronto Blue Jays. Manoa and Guerrero and Kirk. I consistently see graphics from Yankees fans calling these dudes overweight and everything like that. I got a little bit of I thought it was really nice that a guy that is literally nicknamed by the entire MLB Danny Burgers and who is clearly a bigger dude took their Cy Young deep. I thought that was kind of fun.
I thought it was fun, man. And look, baseball, at the end of the day, it's supposed to be fun. Okay? Bat flipping, I don't care if it's the postseason, if it's spring training, if it's a regular season. Bat flipping is fun. Can we all agree that bat flipping makes the game fun? And look at the situation. It's minor league contract, Danny Burgers, like you're saying, taking the Cy Young deep. That's fun. Make baseball fun again. Hashtag make baseball fun again.
Yeah, and I mean, Garrett Cole, too. Like, again, I understand where he's coming from, but, dude, like, you're...
Ease up.
Like, yeah, it's the first inning that you pitched in spring training. Well, this is the thing. This is why he's the Cy Young, though, because he's freaking crazy. You know? It's like he's competitive
he's
like that. Yeah, he's just like, he's nuts, right? So, kind of like that Max Scherzer level of, like, crazy, you know? I feel like all these incredible pitchers... Like, there's a little bit of crazy in them, man. There's a little bit of crazy, and you know, he can't deal with the fact that a minor leaguer took him deep. So pitch better. That's all I gotta say. Pitch better.
Just pitch better. Pitch better. Anything else that we got cooking on the dock? I mean, you talked about Matt Chapman already in your kind of deal. We are getting pretty late in the show, but you talked about a lot about Matt Chapman. The 3-year deal, $54 million. This is the first time we're talking about it on the show. First initial reaction.
Well, I want to clarify a few things because I made a video yesterday and it was about Matt Chapman and it was kind of talking about how Ross Atkins managed the whole situation, and a few people are commenting on it being like, hey, I didn't want Matt Chapman anyways, right? And I get that. I mean, I understand. Like, I don't know if Matt Chapman would have, like, really solved this team or fixed the problems. I mean, we had him last year and we were still kind of mid. But I do think it is goddamn ironic that, like, it really is the cherry on top of the offseason that you offer this guy over $100 million, and then 3 months later he's signing for 3 years, 54. Like, what a twisting of the knife.
And even like, he turned down the qualifying offer, which is $2 million more than what he's making next year. Yeah. It's just a series of events, unfortunate events that happened for Matt Chapman.
And I do think that, like, part of that's Matt Chapman, but also part of it too is the way that Ross Atkins managed the whole situation. And I kind of cycled back to the whole IKF deal. I mean, if we never would have panic signed IKF, and it does kind of feel like a panic sign, then you would have still been in the conversation for Matt Chapman at this point, and you would have been able to match that offer, do better than that. Now, would Matt Chapman come to the Toronto Blue Jays again? I don't know. There's some people saying that maybe he wants to go to California, which is totally fair. I mean, San Francisco is one hell of a good city, so he's got his personal reasons, but, I mean, there's a lot of variables.
He's also linking up with some former coaches that, like, made him MVP numbers, like, back earlier in his career, so, like, there was conversation of that, because they're over in San Francisco. But yeah, I mean, if that was the strat, like, I don't want to think too deep about this, but if that was the strat, like, hey, I'm gonna go link up with a guy who made me really good, and then play really good for 1 year, and then try to test the market again, then I guess that makes sense. That's pretty big brain strategy right there. But I don't know. It just sucks that, speaking of the whole Blue Jays thing, yeah, you're right. Once we signed IKF, there's not a single chance that we're gonna get it back, no matter what the deal was. It just kind of sucks for Matty Ice, because you could have guaranteed your $100 million. Now you got to go through multiple free agencies and off seasons of trying to get that number, and it's unfortunate. Yeah, and it's kind of just like a ironic way of, or I feel like that the whole off season can be summed up in that storyline for the Blue Jays. You know, it's just like, we're trying, and then we fail, and then we panic, and it's depression, and it's not working out in our way, and yeah, like, it's just, I feel like we have gym pictures to go off of. That's our only hype. That's it. It's the closing statement of what's been a depressing off season, and I do think, again, just on the surface, for that price tag, would I have liked Matt Chapman back? Absolutely, I would have. But clearly, we were never going to get that, just on the way that the dominoes fell, so... No, it is what it is. But guys, we're continuing on in the spring training. Hopefully we see some more breakout performances from these Toronto Blue Jays in camp. Hopefully we get a George Springer hit. That would be very nice. And we got to hope and wait and see what these injuries develop to. Because if we can get Manoa back throwing against some live hitting and Kevin Gausman, then we're looking a little bit better for opening day. And we really do need that. Also, just putting it out there in the universe, this is never going to happen. But, I mean, if Blake Snell's deal or Jordan Montgomery's deal looks anything like that, I'm just saying. A 1 year? I agree. You know? A 1 year? Like, come on. Do it. Why not? You know? Why not? Folks, let us know your thoughts about all this in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, go Jays, go!